Welcome, everybody, to Midday Magazine for this Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. Have your host, James J. Malouf here. And we're welcoming today to the studio our friends from the Wood County Sheriff's Department. We have Sheriff Shawn Becker with us. Shawn, good to see you.
Great to see you, as always.
You brought a guest with you.
I call him a victim.
It's another word for it. That's another word. We could have used that.
Doug's been on the show before. We were just talking. I think the last time he was on the show is when the radio station was at the other building. So I don't know. How long has it been since you guys have been here?
Boy, it's been about 3 years or so. I didn't realize it had been that long, Doug.
Yeah,
I thought it had been a while. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
He's reminiscing that he's been dodging the bullet to come here, I guess, the past 3 years. But the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why he's with us today is he's retiring. His last day is going to be coming up this month on March 18th, and I thought this was a great opportunity to come in and make him do all the talking for the next hour, and I could just sit here and smile.
Looking forward to touching on that and some other things that you have for us as well, Shawn. I do want to send a big shout out to all of our good friends over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Appreciate the gang over there. Do yourself a favor. Type into your YouTube search bar Wisconsin Rapids Community Media and subscribe to their page. Keep up to date on all the cool things they are doing over there. Shawn, since we have Doug here, you want to start right there? You want to start with this?
Might as well.
Let's rip the Band-Aid off, Doug. Let's go ahead and dive right in.
Here we go.
Yeah, let it rip.
Doug, for you, I know that we're talking about the end of a career here and everything, and I appreciate your service very much. If you don't mind, I want to rewind for a second, though. What made you get into this line of work?
Boy, that's been a long, long time ago. My family is a trucking family, so I've gotten to hear a lot of stories about different officers through the years that they've had interactions with. Some good, some bad, but really focused on the good interactions, and I wanted to be able to do that. So,
that's a great answer. Great answer. Yeah. When it comes to your early days in this, did you know right away this is the right line of work for me? Did you have doubts early in your career with it?
No, I knew right away.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Almost anybody I talk to, in whatever job they're doing or walk of life or something, it seems like, well, yeah, there was a day where I don't know, it was really hard or something like that. I talk to police officers, firefighters, anybody like that. Nope, no doubt, none. It's just interesting, It's not saying anything one way or the other about these jobs or these types of people. I just we use this phrase a lot, but there's a reason. There is a calling to it. And you heard that call right away.
Yes, I did.
How long have you been in service? Shawn talked about this a little bit, but how long have you been doing this, and what kind of jobs have you done in the time that you've been serving our community?
So I'll be retiring just shy of 30 years. I started off with the Wisconsin State Patrol. That was my first full-time spot. I worked for about a year as a State Patrol inspector, so I was working right directly with the trucking industry. And then I moved into a trooper spot, and from there I came back to Wood County.
I know talking with Shawn about this, and Shawn has brought in some retired officers, and we've talked about this a little bit. This is one of those jobs where you retire, but you don't really leave completely. That badge doesn't necessarily completely be removed. When it comes to keeping connections with the community, with your fellow officers, your friends over there, you looking forward to doing that, or are you heading to Florida? Are you heading out?
Actually, I just got back from Florida.
Did you? That's all right. That's very good.
Came back.
No, I'll definitely keep those connections open and stay involved.
I appreciate that the feedback on those last couple of questions, because one of the things we like to do with this show is certainly promote the things that Shawn has to talk about here and highlight them, give some depth to them that maybe we're not able to otherwise. But we're always looking to make new officers out there. We're always looking to keep this industry very healthy, and that information could help somebody out there who may be on the fence or have not even thought about this as a career and like, well, wait a minute, that lines up with what I like and that lines up with what I want to do.
Right.
Yeah. No, just to reminisce with him, Doug did. He forgot to mention he started as a part-time deputy reserve deputy for the sheriff's department. So that program goes back so many years and gives people that opportunity to get that first taste or experience into law enforcement. And I know when probably shortly after high school, he's a Lincoln grad.
Nice.
So a thing to highlight that I always like to do is when you have somebody that goes to college. As Doug mentioned, he knew pretty quickly that this was the passion, the career that he wanted to be part of. Got the experience with our reserve deputy program at the time, and then took a job with the State Patrol and worked there a few years. And then what's really admirable is that, okay, with the State Patrol, you can get put almost anywhere in the state. You kind of, and back then, and you can explain that, it's a little bit more competitive than it is now, where you can't really choose where you want to be. You get put somewhere. And I don't recall exactly where you were working when you were with the State Patrol, but you had the desire to come back. And he got hired in 1999. I remember quite vividly, and we'll probably talk a little bit more in depth about that. But I had started in 97, and then we didn't hire anybody for a couple of years. And Doug was first hire, because back then at the Sheriff's Department, we really didn't have much turnover at all. And really didn't, I think before myself and John Hiller were hired, it had been, I think, another 5 years that we had an opening, previous to that. And I think that's when Scott Mahaka got hired. So, I mean, it was different back then, but what is really something to highlight is back then you had to get experience, somewhere in law enforcement full time to get to the departments that, you really wanted to. And, with Doug being, growing up here in Wisconsin Rapids and having a desire to come back and raise a family, and be part of the community, that's huge. I really, personally appreciate that and love to talk about it, that people that want to come back to the community that they grew up in and want to serve that community.
What did that mean for you, Doug? Again, going back to the calling part of this, wherever you're able to serve, you're going to be giving it everything you've got and honoring the badge, I know. But when you're able to do that in your roots, in your own hometown and everything, what does that mean to you? What did that mean to you, or does that mean to you?
So getting into law enforcement, I knew right away that I wanted to work for the Sheriff's Department. My wife's father, my father-in-law, he worked for the Wood County Sheriff's Department. So kind of following in his footsteps, it was quite an honor to get the phone call, offering a position with the Sheriff's Department. As, right from the beginning, that this is where I wanted to be. Getting to patrol the areas that I knew, serving the community that I loved, so.
Yeah, it's interesting. What were some of your guys' early memories of those first days, those early days?
Well, and I think our career paths kind of mirrored each other. I think our goals when we were on patrol were, getting into, I think a big one for us was getting on the special response team. And again, going back to that time frame, there weren't many openings because the team was already established, and that was a goal. You saw the people that had the seniority, had the leadership positions, and were being mentored by them. But it's like you had to wait. It's like you couldn't get on the team, and we both did around the same time. I think you started as a sniper, sharpshooter, and I was a negotiator, and then moved into an entry position. Then you kind of had a dual position. And what the first highlight I'll bring up is, we got sent to training over to Rice Lake for entry school, and so the training is basically other people from other SWAT teams from around the state, and it's just that basic entry level training that you have to have. I think it was called basic SWAT training, and it's a week-long school over in Rice Lake. We had a great time until, I don't know what day it was, but we were going through some scenario training, and Doug wound up losing a tooth. And I'll never forget, I think you were in front of me going through the stack, and they, it was kind of like somebody holding a bag, and then they push you back, and you need to have, some of your equipment out, and whatever happened. Part of the equipment, I think it was your gun, came back and hit you in the face, and then he turned to me and pointed, and I'm like, whoa. You're missing a tooth.
That's a new one.
So timeout, we had to go through that, and an instructor came over, and I think took you to a local dentist, and you came back pretty quickly though. You weren't gone very long. I mean, he was able to complete
I had
the
to have
training.
the rest of that tooth removed.
Oh, I was going to ask.
So then,
Okay.
throughout the rest of this training, working with a bunch of kind individuals, all of them with a sense of humor. Every chance that Shawn got, he had to make me smile. And then people started showing up with white chiclets. Here, see if this one will fit. And then they started showing up with quarters. Well, this is in case the tooth fairy can't find you because you're away from home.
It's so cheap. I mean, just a quarter.
Just
really.
A quarter, but that's great. That's
and
awesome.
I don't know if we got many pictures of that. That was like before the cell phone, time. I think everybody had flip phones, so I think you lucked out on that. I mean, to be honest, I think you did.
Yeah, actually, kind of dodged one right there.
Yeah, but that's kind of, and then the other thing too that we did early on in our career together, we both had an interest, and it turned into a little bit of a passion for traffic crash reconstruction. I think with the background with with the State Patrol, and then one of our, he's long since retired, Rick Kirst, one of our trained officers, was our only department's traffic crash reconstructionist, and kind of pushed us, hey, this is something that you guys should be interested in. And little did we know the training that really brought to the table once we made that commitment to be a traffic crash reconstructionist. I think it was extremely eye-opening for both of us on the training that you have to go through, and it's not easy. I remember we both probably had different times that we'd struggle through different aspects of the training because it's so specialized, and we're really fortunate now to have a State Patrol having their traffic reconstruction unit, because they're always helping, not just our department, but everybody in doing these types of investigations. But we did those together, and getting through the training and then getting deployed to, unfortunately, traffic fatalities, getting those phone calls anytime during the night or whenever. And the first one that we worked together was on County Highway F, where somebody had rear-ended somebody else, and basically pushed their vehicle off into the ditch area, into a field, and the person was ejected and died. And then the offending driver took off, left the scene, probably was intoxicated. An off-duty officer, came upon the crash and told him to stay, but he took off. So we got called out to that, and then we put the knowledge and training to work, and put a lot of time in it. Doug he's a better drawer than I am. I kind of draw things in crayon. He's a little bit more precise and everything, but back then the computer programs were starting to evolve. So a lot of the information, our training was like longhand, doing, using calculators, figuring out the formulas that would fit this investigation. And what we found out is how precise the science is. We worked his drawing, it was a momentum kind of investigation or problem to work out, and lo and behold, we came up with the speed and the impact speed of what that crash was, and when that person was rear-ended, how fast that vehicle was going. And I remember, we're looking at each other like, wow, is this working out that this person's probably going 80 plus miles an hour at the impact or somewhere around there, and just working that problem and figuring out, okay, this is probably one of the main contributing factors that led to the death of somebody else. And then seeing that through, into the district attorney's office was a pretty big experience for us. I took away from, working together and really, the head scratcher of like, wow, this stuff does make sense, with what we've learned. And, and you could talk a little bit more about that, because there's a few crashes that we were called out to that, they're hard to work, but you take the knowledge and the training, the investment that the sheriff's department made in you, and then you make that commitment. And, we've gotten called out several times during our career to, work together to figure out, okay, what happened. And, it's something that, again, that not only SRT working, together with, but even, doing traffic crash reconstruction and those investigations were something that experience, even though the tragedy part of it, but we're doing our job for the right reason, to make sure that somebody is held accountable. If they are, it really depends on the crash, because there's been some that were head scratchers why I think the one in over by Vesper where Amish got rear-ended, and we put a lot of time in that. And it was a drunk driver hit an Amish trailer and killed at least one person, if I remember right. And then working through that, we're like, okay, this is, I wouldn't say a no-brainer because that's not fair, but, like, okay, we have somebody that's intoxicated, rear-ending somebody. It just seems like we know the facts here. This person's probably going to get prosecuted. But then once we worked with the State Patrol as they were evolving, we found, well, wait a minute, there's some other factors here that we have to consider. And that was the lighting on the trailer. Right now we're at dusk and almost dark, and you have to look at what that other driver's seen. And that was an experience for us that initially I don't think we agreed with, but then as we talked about it, it's like, okay, if that that shows that there's not just fault on, you get tunnel vision. Okay, we have a drunk driver. All right, this makes sense that this person's going to be held accountable for it, and they were to some level, but you look at the cause of the crash, and then that's where that came up. But there's a few of those examples out there that that we had the opportunity to work together with, and then even evolve with the State Patrol as well, and continue to learn.
It's a part of the job that I'm very interested in. I think that we could spend a whole hour on just this department and just talking about this work. Maybe we should sometime, because I find it interesting. I'll admit it's a little triggering for me. I was in a lot of accidents as a kid, and just talking about this stuff, I'm a little... I don't have a lot of quarter for this when it comes to bad driving or people not paying attention to driving, let alone drunk driving and some of these other things. I have a lot of respect for the people that do this, for lack of a better way to put it, puzzle work that goes on with this, along with the emotional toll that this must take and everything. I do want to ask just a side question before we get into any other highlights or anything like else of Doug's career. Something, and I think Joe could touch on this too, when it comes to acting, one of the first things I'll tell people about acting, you want to be good at acting, work behind the scenes. Work behind the stage and understand a little bit of what it's like to be out back there and doing some things. Run sound, be a prop person, something like that. It'll make you that much better at it. Did you guys find where you are now in your careers, these early jobs, these early things really helped you form into what you are now? I'll start with you, Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. I can recall working as a reserve deputy, actually doing a ride-along with Rick Kirst and the early days of the crash recon program, and asking a lot of questions. And just being amazed that he was able to take what appeared to be a small amount of information and put things back together to determine how fast people were going, where the vehicles were, what happened after the crash, to put the vehicles into whatever configuration that we find them when we get on the scene. So, yes, asking a lot of questions and just being there and watching someone with the expertise do the job, it tends to form the pathways that you want to take.
Yeah. Shawn?
No, I'd agree. I can't say enough positive things about Rick Kirst. When we both started our career here, being... he's a training officer, extremely smart, a lot smarter than us, I think. We found that out. I was pretty upset with him initially when he talked me into doing the traffic reconstruction, and I got sent down to Northwestern University for a 2-week school. And he told me that a lot of the training's set up in phases. You start with the technical aspect of it, and then you go into more of the, I wouldn't say the expertise, but more... It comes down to like the math stuff, like the one that I'm talking about, vehicle dynamics. And I think that was a week-long school. And so I get sent down, and I remember being pretty upset with him pulling. I felt like I was in college again, pulling all-nighters and trying to figure out this training. And I came back pretty mad at him, and he told me, you'll go through that, no problem. It'll be a breeze. And it wasn't for me,
It was intense training.
Yeah, and I just said, I could have gone to the other train to set you up for this. And, but it just shows that, how smart, Rick is and how he got it. And then that, very similar to what Doug said, working with him and then seeing him, investigate these crashes like he did, have an impact. I'm like, I'd like to do that. The unfortunate thing is what you're dealing with, the tragedies, but at least you're helping get an answer. And in the big picture, holding somebody accountable that could have prevented a crash.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are there parts of this particular part of the job that people would be surprised by, or are, not common knowledge as far as putting these scenes back together or trying to figure out what happened?
Probably the biggest thing that, since we haven't been doing it for quite a while, looking at, the technology and how that has changed so fast. For us, and this is kind of a fortunate thing, we didn't get called out a lot, and that's a good thing if you look at it. But on the flip side of it, if you're not doing these investigations all the time, you got to really rely on the training that you got and reverting back to it. And then with technology changing, and that was happening when we were, still doing this, it's a pretty big investment that a law enforcement agency has to commit to. And we're seeing that, with, we would map out scenes with, roll tape measures. And
we literally started with 2 tape measures.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and we'd have to get the long ones, 300-foot stuff, and do it kind of the long way. Now, the State Patrol and some law enforcement agencies that are pretty busy with this kind of these kind of investigations will make that investment with a total station where they're, popping down, basically a computer and a camera and then mapping the whole scene out. And it's quite an elaborate process that has gone through. So technology has changed a lot throughout, and the cars have become safer. If you look at, one of the last fatalities we had, and we'll talk about a little bit with Highway 10 and 186, looking at the cars and, seeing how a newer car that collided with an older car, both, having airbags and everything, but then the newer car having side impact airbags and just the safety things that have changed with motor vehicles, which is to our benefit. We have to consider those.
We're going to take a quick time out. We'll come back more with our Wood County Sheriff's Department. We've got Shawn and Doug with us, along with our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, right here at WFHR. Welcome back, everybody, to Midday Magazine for this Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. I have your host, James, here, and we're in part 2 now with our friends from the Wood County Sheriff's Department. We have Sheriff Shawn Becker with us, along with Lieutenant Doug Christianson, and want to send a big thank you to our friends over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. I messed that up, didn't I, guys?
No, you got a promotion.
I gave you a promotion, didn't I? I knew I was going to do that. I knew I was going to do that.
We'll have to talk to HR on your raise.
There are a few more embarrassing things than getting a title wrong for somebody. I apologize, Doug. I apologize.
Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Do appreciate you being here. And really, especially reminiscing while also giving us a chance to show some appreciation for you in the career and the time and effort that you put into our community. We've really been enjoying this process and being able to do this. And Shawn, you want to continue down memory lane a little bit here with Doug and some other highlights from him.
When you have a career that hits about 30 years, there's a lot of memories. Doug likes to play a lot of jokes on people, and yeah, and don't worry, we'll get even at some point. Whether you're working for us or not, there will be some level.
There's no statute of limitations on that. What I understand, from what I understand legally.
Well, lately, he's been leaving marbles all over everybody's office is a memory for him. Just don't lose your marbles, that kind of thing. So I was kidding with him this morning. I'm like, you might find those in your yard. So I would change the mower depth. I don't want you to break a window. I'd feel bad for a little bit. But he does, and it's nice with what we do to bring some light to our profession. Because that's where I want to segue into because it's very important on how we got to the position Doug has right now, being a sergeant on the investigation division with that mental health focus, and we've talked about this before and how important that is. And that really evolved from Doug, on a couple different levels. One, in our department, not just, being, lighthearted with people and playing, reasonable jokes on people. It's, dealing with our own staff. And when you go up and you take a look at, all of our calls of service, and if you see something that might have been, I don't know, maybe traumatic, or it might have bothered one of our staff members, and to step up and just to check on him. And that came on his own. Nobody asked him to do that. He decided to do that, and that's and we've talked about our wellness and how that's built throughout the years, and Doug's been a huge part of that. And again, we'll talk some more about that. But then the other thing too that evolved, that I don't think there's many other law enforcement agencies that evolved the way we did, and that's because of you, whether we want to complain about it or not. But it's a direction that it took our department that I really set us apart from a lot of people, and I think that we've been looked at now as an agency that people look up to us on, okay, how you deal with mental health in law enforcement, because going back when we started our careers, there wasn't any training. It was so much different now, where it's a priority for wellness, and it's a priority for the community on how law enforcement fits when we're dealing with people that are having some struggles in their life, whether it's something to do with a mental health issue or an illness or something. And it's always a great story that I love to brag about. Years ago when I was in a different position and Doug was on the road, and some changes were made statutorily on how we dealt with really welfare checks. And we go to a welfare check where somebody's struggling, and it was, I wouldn't say it was never easy, but the decision making was rather quick. If somebody was a harm to themselves or others, and there might have been a couple other factors that we'd have to deal with, they would either go to a mental health facility, a hospital, or they wouldn't. It was, either way. It's kind of, I wouldn't say black and white, but kind of. And then once the statutes changed, where we weren't the people making those decisions, it came down to human services, and that was a quick adjustment. And in the position I had, I wasn't out seeing it. I was more of an administrator, and Doug was. And Doug struggled with it a lot. And he came and offered up his concerns, and I'm politely saying that.
I was a pain in his side.
Often, and he didn't give up. It wasn't something that in one ear to me and then out the other, but it continued. And then what evolved from that, quite honestly, is CIT, that training. Our crisis intervention team training with NAMI evolved with our department. He was the first one to go to CIT based upon the recommendation of Katie Sis. Hey, send him this. And she already had that background. She had the training. I'm like, okay. And then Doug went to the training, and the light bulb went off. And then and here we are. I don't know how many classes we've had, maybe but we trained hundreds of law enforcement officers here in Wood County. All right, not just the commitment our agency has, but other law enforcement agencies seeing it and putting on that 40-hour training is something that I'm very proud of it. Like I said, at two different levels. One, the wellness level, taking care of our people, and here now stretching out to the community, because this training is very important, because when we're out in the community, what we learn, we can apply that and help people through these situations that they're struggling in.
You and I, and even Doug, I believe when you were with us before, Doug, have talked on mental health a lot in society, and especially with what you guys deal with. And it's something that when I was young, you learn gallows humor real quick in the inner city, in the projects. You learn these things very quickly because that's how you survive. Days are hard. You learn to laugh at laugh to keep from crying, and the old phrase and stuff. And it's something that my mother and I did quite a bit. As a kid, I really fell in love with like crime shows, a crime story, going back to something like that. I've seen every single episode and every version of Law and Order there is. And not only is Jerry Orbach the best detective they ever had on that show, but he was the best at that one-liner, that line right before they went to the news, or right before they went to the theme song and everything. And I used to have friends that would kind of say, well, that's just unrealistic. Nobody would ever do that or anything like that. And trying to get them to understand that, no, this is how officers survive oftentimes, is by being able to have this gallows humor, if you will, this darker humor sometimes, or just humor in general. And I'm not saying that it's a laugh riot, obviously, but there are moments where you find that, hey, here's a moment for funny. Let's take it, because we don't know when we're going to get the next one. There's a tendency naturally for human beings to kind of, what my life is like and my job is like. Unless you're doing this work, there is no comparison. There is no comp to this. There are parallels, maybe. There are things you might find in common, but there's nothing like putting that badge on. And only you guys understand that. So then going to the mental health part of this, Doug, I would say this to you no matter what. I appreciate your service. I think you're one of the braver human beings I know in doing what you've done for 30-some years. This action right here, the things that Shawn is touching on, is some of the bravest stuff you're going to hear today, anybody. I appreciate that we're in a part of our society now where, the strong, silent type, and we're getting away from that. And we're understanding the strongest, bravest people we know face these things, talk about these things, and even stronger than that, talk about it with others and help others. That's how we get by. That's how we survive, not only in your industry, but in life in general. I don't use this word lightly, trailblazer, like in this work, and it's appreciative, not just in this community, not just in the departments you guys work in and everything, but in society in general, man. It's important. It's great work, and I appreciate the insight to this, you guys, because again, this is another one of those things I don't think as community members we get to see very often or understand very much.
Yeah, the foundation that Doug left. You look at, people can go through a career and they can coast through and just get by. He didn't. And then you look at the impact, like I just said, that'll last forever. The wellness part of it's only going to grow for us because it's a very important thing for not just law enforcement officers, but all first responders that deal with the traumas that go on, unfortunately, every day. And we have to take care of each other. And if we don't, then how do we expect to take care of the communities that we serve? And that's where, the officer wellness, that outreach is not only just, our agency, but, part of our CISM team that he's part of, that does that not only just, it's not exclusive to law enforcement, it's to all of us. Because, essentially when, we're dealing with emergencies, we're all working together, and then you look at, like I said, it's fun to brag about. I think people sometimes get sick of me talking about it, but you look at the people that have an impact on the community, and Doug did. I'm going to hate to see him go, but we talked a little bit this morning about, hey, what's the next plan? Because you brought it up right away in the show about, okay, what do you do? How do you unplug? Because people do struggle, and I do worry about that for anybody that leaves this profession, especially our team. But he knows this. Just like any retiree, they're always welcome at the department. Anytime they want to come in, they're always going to be welcome. Because sometimes people struggle with unplugging and moving forward. But he'll always be part of our team, and he knows that. But he's got a great plan moving forward. Nobody, you've got to look at your next steps in life. And, on the way here, we were just talking about, my daughter Jordan, she's expecting, and that's her first, grandchild.
Mazel tov.
Yeah,
salute.
And just
That's awesome.
Going through that, all of what she's gone through with IBF and all of the time and the stress and the anxiety, and to her to get to that point now, she's 4.5 months along and had a big ultrasound yesterday, sending the pictures, and everything's looking awesome, and things are looking great. So you look at those things, and he's got a very strong family, and that's the next thing to look forward to, and that's very admirable.
Mm-hmm. Doug, when it comes to what's next for you, without prying or anything like that, do you have something in line? Are you looking forward to it? Or I don't know. I never even think about retirement. So just thinking about it, how about just nothing? Like, I like the idea of having nothing planned. That sounds great. That sounds like a first step into retirement. But do you have anything like?
Oh, I've got a lot of irons in the fire.
Good. To Shawn's point, I think it's just it's just good that you have some things lined up, that you have some thoughts on it. That's great. When it comes to some of the things else that Shawn was talking about there about leaving the job and everything, there are certainly going to be parts of it, no matter how much you love any job, that are going to be nice, not having to wake up at a certain time or some of those things. But when it comes to the things you're going to miss, when it comes to the things you are most proud of, are there anything that stands out? Are there things that pop to your mind right away?
Just in the past 4 years as a mental health officer, I've had the opportunity to interact with a lot of people that have been at their lowest moments, and I know that there's at least 3 that we prevented a suicide. So just hanging on to that and just remembering that I had the privilege and the honor to be the person that was there to help those individuals through those situations. Those are memories that will never go away.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no topping that. That's wonderful to hear, and I appreciate you sharing that. It also adds to the parts of this that Shawn, I think, was talking about, where we really want to highlight about you and your career is you've already taken on quite a bit just being an officer. Yep. You already go above and beyond in this job every day to do something like this, to welcome something like this, to seek it out and everything. It just. I brought this with Shawn many times, but it pops in my head almost every time we get together with you guys. My nanny used to tease me about being Jimmy. There are some people that just run where angels fear to tread. And we need these individuals in our society. We need these people, the individuals like yourselves, and people like future officers out there that we're encouraging. And we have I would say that this has always been a very proud and very welcoming profession. Where we're going now with some of the things we've talked about with mental health and everything, I know just from talking, I've talked to people in like Second City, like actors and improv people who think more about this line of work now, in part because of the way society has gone with this. And it's not just, hey, tough it up. Hey, it's the job, tough it up, or anything like that. Getting a little bit better about these things and being there for each other. Another thing that I touched on quite a bit that Shawn mentioned earlier that's so important when we're talking about mental health. You know, when you're taking a flight on a plane, they tell you got to put your mask on first before you can put it on the other person. You're going to pass out before you even get it on them. Yep. You got to put your mask on first. Exactly. In order to be able to help others, you've got to be able to do that. And your whole job is helping others. Yep. So it's so vital for you guys to be doing these things and to be on the forefront of this, to be ahead of these things, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it again, is really impactful for our community. And again, speaks to the work that you've done, your legacy here, if you will.
Yeah, no, legacy, and you have one that we can brag about, that we're always going to be appreciative of, Doug. I hate to see you go, but, I understand big picture. We have that moment in life that we move forward, and rest assured you made a big impact on our department and the community.
Well, and I don't mean to be morbid here. I can't help myself sometimes, but we don't get to do this enough with our officers. Say, hey, enjoy retirement. Hey, and you made it this far and everything. So we're very appreciative of that as well.
Thank you.
Not lost on any of us. Doug, when it comes to some of the pranks you've pulled, do you have any favorite ones? Do you have any favorite?
Careful.
Oh yeah. I don't know about that statute of limitations thing. I haven't looked into that.
So back in our old building, before the new jail was going up, we always used to park our squads near our entry door. They were all lined up. And my lieutenant at the time always got there first. And he'd park in the first parking stall. Well, I happened to acquire a key to his squad. So this took about 3 months of every single shift. I would move his squad 3 or 4 spaces. Oh. And later on, I was talking to another member of my shift, and he said, we were walking out the other day, and the lieutenant was clicking his key fob, and he's just, I don't know, I must be losing my mind. My car's never where I thought I left it. And it was shortly after that I finally got caught. But that was 3 months.
Did you pay for it?
Oh, man.
Maybe.
I can't believe you did that to Lieutenant Loudy.
No, not Lieutenant Loudy. Lieutenant Sager.
Oh, okay. I'm tearing up over here. That is a great one. Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I might steal that one. I might have to try to do that to Seth or something. That's fantastic.
That's probably why you retired.
Oh, that's good. Did you have anything else about Doug you wanted to touch on before we get to kind of some odds and ends as we're getting close to wrapping up here, Shawn?
I said a lot, but I mean it with what I've mentioned about the impact you've had, and just moving forward, and not just in my career, but the sheriff's department. You look at the people that have laid groundwork to build upon a foundation, and we're lucky. We are, and I know the community appreciates it and really opened up an opportunity and something to move forward, especially talking about mental health.
Yeah, I'm simply a megaphone for this community many times, Doug, and we appreciate you, and we thank you for your service. And I hope you enjoy a long and fun and enjoyable retirement that you can still pull your pranks off in, if you can still do it.
Thank you.
Shawn, did you had some odds and ends we wanted to touch on before we wrapped up today?
Just a couple of things to recognize. Adam Berry, Sergeant Adam Berry. Doug worked on that crew for a while. He's here with his part-time experience here 20 years already. So congrats to Adam. And then Christine Bethard, one of our canine handlers. She has Roscoe, and she's been here 15 years. So both of them started part-time with us. So like Doug did, that program that we have, it's huge.
Yeah, it pays dividends.
Even with the lack of interest in law enforcement, we've got some really good leaders, Kelvin Dohorst and Jeremy Keith, who gets out to push that program out. It seems like we're doing more backgrounds every year, but that's not something that we're going to step away from just because of the foundation that it builds. Our department and other agencies too. Just recently we hired 2 people, and they're both in the academy right now, and that's something that Doug can attest to, that we got to go get our experience before we can get back here. But now we're at a point where we'll sponsor people in the academy before they start with us. And Haley Zwislin was the first person we hired, and we're sponsoring her. And then Alexa Matthews, we just hired full time. And I'll tell you, telling her, Alexa at Midstate, that she's now going to be full time, it was pretty cool. Yeah. And that's going to be the 40th graduating class at Midstate Technical College in a law enforcement recruit academy. And that's, you reminisce about that. Doug went there. Just how many people, with Midstate committing to that program, and a lot of it's Clark Poggle, God rest his soul, having that vision and pushing it through many years ago to where we're at now. 40 classes, and I was just thinking about, that graduation class coming up here in May, and 40 classes of, on average 25 people. Do the math, and it's not the impact that Midstate Technical College and Clark had on those officers, because they're all over the country working, but look at the impact that they had on people, on the communities they serve. So it's not just 40 times 25, it's well beyond that. And to really highlight Midstate Technical Colleges, the president there, Shelley, she's awesome. Her team there is just phenomenal. It's not just about law enforcement, but I can just comment about that because of the impact it has had on our department and the country, in my opinion. If you look at how that outreach is awesome. And it's just something to highlight how lucky we are to have Midstate Technical College here in our community, and the impact that college has on our community, not just in Wisconsin Rapids, but all over.
We know how to reach you for emergencies, but if non-emergency things, Shawn, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, follow up on some of the things we've talked about today, or just in general, how can they do that?
Give us a call at the Sheriff's Department. 715-421-8705 is my direct line, or 8715 is our office, or dispatches 421-8701. That's going to get you right to a dispatcher.
It was an honor talking with you today, Doug. Thanks so much for the time and everything. And again, thank you for the service to our community. You enjoy retirement, man.
I will. Thank you.
Shawn, always good hanging out with you. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it.
And a big thank you to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, doing amazing work over there. Subscribe to their page and keep up to date on that great work, everybody. We'll be back with more Midday Magazine coming up here at 97.5 FM, 1320 AM, WFHR, locally grown radio.